Hey, welcome back to the Positive Side Podcast. Glad you're tuning in. Jeremy Todd, the host, the fastest growing motivational podcast in the galaxy. So all the planets and stars that we can, with all the planets circling the stars that we don't know about, you're listening to the show too. And I'm glad you're tuning in today. Alexsys Thompson's going to join us here in just a second, but I just want to talk real quick about just gratitude real quick. I had this feeling earlier today about, a lot of the things that go on in our lives about, sometimes we have good things, some things we have bad things. And I see just so much negativity out there. And I just want to just start this show real quick and get this off my mind that no matter whatever situation you're in right now, it's having that attitude of gratitude and really being thankful for what you have. It's easy to compare yourself to other people when they have the new boats, the new cars, the new whatever, the new house, new everything. But understand that you have greatness within. And I think that's super, super important. Just a quick reminder, because again, when the world, we have so much conflict and arguing and fighting. And then on top of that, we go through this stress level where we try to compare ourselves to other people. It's easy to forget how wonderful and beautiful our souls are. And I just want to remind you that, again, you have greatness within. So keep that in mind just going forward. But I had to get that off my chest when I started today. But today, Alexsys Thompson is going to join us. She's the creator of the Trybal Gratitude Journal, keynote speaker, executive coach, certified soul language practitioner, and a member of the Forbes Council, Coaches Council. Her work is guided in her life's mission to create safe spaces for souls to show up. Alexsys, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. When you talk about the soul, I always like to hear people's definition of the soul. Like, when I say soul, what does that mean to you? And I mean, I guess is that more of a like religious aspect? Is it a soul that is going to be transferable from here to the next life? Is it? I guess just describe a little bit about the soul.
Yeah, for me, it's not. It doesn't have a religious connotation at all. I suppose it could, but for me, it doesn't. And it really is the combination of your energy and the source that you were, the essence of who you are was created into. The body's just the mechanism. It's like the car you're driving this time, you know?
I do know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so okay. So what happens? We talk about the soul, and I love to have any kind of soul. Every time I have someone on that says anything, mention the word soul. I love soul conversations.
Okay.
What do you believe happens when you die? Does your soul continue to go on to a different body, different spirit, different animal? Where does it go? And what's your thoughts? What's your belief about where the soul ends up going?
Yeah. So, good question.
So
So
good.
there's one other person that interviewed me that went for this as well. So this is very interesting that it's coming up twice now. So for me, when I was 9 years old, I got the answer to the question. So I was sitting out in a snowbank in Vermont, enjoying a beautiful winter day, making a fort. And then there was a ball of energy that came around me. And I had the awareness, the transfer of information. I don't know what you would call it at 9, but I had a knowing that life just comes in and comes out and it ebbs and it flows. So sometimes, from what I saw, your energy can come in fully intact the way that you might see me, but you wouldn't really see me, but the essence of me, the way that I am now. But sometimes it might not all be there. I could be maybe you and I pass in the same timeline and we hit in the stars and kind of mush up a little bit. And when we separate again, there's a little bit of me and you over here, a little bit of me and you over there. And then we just keep cycling through. And there's lifetimes where more of you that is familiar and has been together before is so you're working out perhaps karma or lessons, although I'm not sure I'm all into that either. So I just don't think it is as complicated, but it's also very distilled very simply. And I ran into my parents' house. I grew up Catholic, speaking of religion.
Sort of that.
And I said to them, oh, I know how it works. I know how it works. But at 9, I didn't really have a vocabulary about reincarnation or life or death. I didn't have that information to verbalize it in a manner for them to get it. So when I was trying to spit it out, my parents thought I was talking about having babies, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. We're not going to talk about that. How about a lollipop, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure they don't even remember this day. For me, it was a big marker because I had a transition. I had a knowing. And then it got debunked by the people that I thought I could share that with and have a cool conversation, even though I had no idea what I was talking about. So that's my experience of my truth about what soul is and how it comes and goes and recycles or doesn't, and not always on earth. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting. Like I've talked about my daughter on an episode a few months ago, and I truly believe she's one of those people that can actually see somebody's soul. She can actually feel the presence of something, whether it be a positive energy or negative energy or something. She was a clairvoyant. I think that's the word. I
Mhm.
believe she is clairvoyant because of the things that she just says off the cuff. Just I don't know about that person, Dad. That person has a bad energy. And she's so sweet and so kind that she's not trying to be like rude. And it's not about a
Mhm.
person, what it has nothing to do physically with what they look like. Or even if
Mhm.
we go into a place, she'll be like, Dad, I don't really like it here. I don't want to stay here. Can we leave? Absolutely, 100%. Because I just think some certain people can feel those different souls on different levels. And she is definitely one of those people. Do you think you can see someone's soul?
I see auras.
Yeah.
So ever since I was young, I was able to see the lightness or the heaviness of a soul, if that's what
Yeah,
you're speaking to.
that's what I'm speaking of. Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and I think we all have that ability. I truly do, but I think it gets clouded by whether
Yes.
it be food and drug and bad environments. I think that's we get beat up in so many different ways, and it's hard for us to take that 10,000 foot view and actually look at what's going on in society and in our lives. Now, I want to talk a little bit about too. You just recently wrote a book, "The Powerful Grateful Leader," and I love that too because I'm going to tie them all back in because obviously I talked about being grateful earlier when I first started the podcast. Now we're talking about souls and being grateful. I think nowadays having this conversation is more important now than ever because it's an opportunity for a leader to be who they truly are, and it's the type of leader that needs to step up now more than ever. Talk a little bit about your book. Talk about when you say the word power of a grateful leader. What
Mhm.
exactly do you mean by the power of a grateful leader, and how can you like how can I take that into my business life?
Yeah. So, um, not to be terribly corrective, but the title's The Graceful Leader.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I,
That's okay.
I
But
can't read my
gratitude
handwriting.
is the entry point into this whole body of work. So, the grace in this book is not religion, but it could be again. What it speaks to is your grace center, the part you have your soul, and then there's also this. My experience is there's your heart center, which we talk about heart center leadership, servant leadership, when we're talking about conscious leadership. And graceful leadership takes all of those things and embodies it so that it's actually a human physical experience and a way of showing up that includes all those levels of who you are. It doesn't omit any one. But what it calls you to do is be extremely integrated. So there's some really heavy lifting in here where you're gonna, if you choose this way of living, you're gonna need to really clean up stuff. You would do a kind of a timeline of your life where you've had transgressions either against you or you've offended or hurt someone else, and you go through and you catalog and you true up that stuff. And in the book it talks about it. It's a misalignment inventory. And I'll never forget when I did it the first time. It was the heaviest lift because it was where there was a lot of junk. And I give some examples of myself in there and others. But that's what's you're called into, that heavy lifting, so that you can get really clear about your mission, vision, purpose, call it what you will, about why you're even here. So when I created the tagline, or I didn't create it, when I started to live into the tagline of creating safe places for souls to show up, that was after almost 6 years of pretty rigorous work about having a mission that was a paragraph long and then a sentence long. And then, it morphed over that time, but it's been this for over a decade. So everything that happens to me in my personal space as I'm leading my own life or I'm leading others comes through that filter. And what happens is that filter is really clean, right? So if someone asks me to do something or be something or spend money someplace or time someplace, and it isn't speaking to creating safe places for souls to show up in some faction or another, it's a very easy, hey, that's not me, here's someone else.
Yeah.
And when it is a yes, then I actually know what I'm being called into and the behaviors and the essence. And my soul is like so present in that work that my soul and my human are at its most integrated space and time in that moment. People call it flow, magic. There's all kinds of words for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically what it boils down to is alignment again. I mean, that's really what it boils down to for sure. Once again, we're speaking to Alexsys Thompson, author of The Power of the Graceful Leader. I like graceful better than grateful anyways. It sounds way more, which sounds way better than grateful. I love graceful because it's how you present yourself. Right. And one of the things you mentioned just briefly a second ago was you talked about cleaning up your life.
Mhm.
Give me an example of what you mean by clean up life, because I work with people that I think are fantastic leaders, but maybe behind the scenes they have that, you know, that skeleton in the closet. Are you talking about more like that, cleaning up your life? I would assume you are talking about, you know, getting some of the, you know, just the not just bad habits, but just I don't know, but maybe some of the just the stuff that the baggage you're carrying around with your entire life. Talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by cleaning up your life?
Yeah. So that usually it starts with the nuts and bolts of cleaning up the messes you've left behind. I mean, quite frankly,
So like you're going back in time and saying, hey,
I
this is how
literally
I
went
screwed
back
up.
in time and made things as right as I was allowed to. Because you go back in time and someone either isn't there
Oh,
or
sure.
they're not able or willing to receive you because of whatever the thing was, right? They're in a different place than you are with it. But you make the attempt, and where you're allowed to, you make amends.
Mm.
Um, and what happens when you do that is you start to clear out the shame and blame in your own life, and you start to be able to actually look in the mirror and see who you really are and who you're meant to be. But if you can't get that out of the way, it's mission impossible.
Yeah. What okay, so you go do you help your client? I mean, obviously you're a coach as well. Do you help clients even have that conversation? Because I think it'd be very difficult
Oh
to
yeah.
go back to relatives or best friends or mom or dad or brother or sister and have that conversation. What would you tell somebody that I mean, how do you help someone through that? I guess I don't I'm just curious more than anything.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I've done this hundreds of times. So a pretty normal one for many of us adults is something with our in our family, whether it's brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, grandfathers, parents. And so one that comes up a lot is either your mother or father, depending on what your wound is that you're working through in life. And there's usually something that either was you feel put upon you. And remember, when you're young, that instance happens at whatever age it happens, and you put meaning making to it from the position of being 6, 10, 17, and 20, right?
Yeah.
And that's all you have to put the meaning making to it. But now you're 30, 40, 50, right?
Yeah.
And you have different skills to bring back to look at this situation from a different perspective. And that really is gratitude, is that the only thing gratitude does for you is helps you shift perspective, which shifts everything, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you're able to bring your adult self back to your younger self and look at the situation, however horrific, because sometimes they're pretty horrific things, um, and you write the letter to yourself, or you do the thing that gets it out of your body and into onto paper or a keyboard or whatever your mode of translating that out of your body is, then you have to make a safety call for yourself, but depending on the level of the transgression, whether you committed it or you received it, if it's safe at this point to have that conversation. Most of the time it is. It's things like, most recently, an example would be, my dad was really domineering over me. This was a woman. She's very senior executive. And if I got anything less than an A in school, then I could pretty much erase the rest of my life until all of my ducks were in a row with my scholastics. So the really cool thing is I'm an overachiever, hence I have this really cool job, da 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 da. But the bad part is now I'm leading people and I have that framework, and I know it's not appropriate, and I don't know how to reframe it for myself, much less for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's so cool because, you know, I think there's so many people out there that we look at, and again, this goes back to one of my favorite quotes of all time: "Comparison is the thief of joy." When we compare ourselves to people that are just that we think are super successful, and their life is just so perfect. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all the same people. We're all struggling. We're all going through difficult times. When you're talking about the past, I was trying to find this book that I'm listening to right now. It's Dr. Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural, and
Yeah. Great one.
yeah, you know, I'm just brand new into it. I got recommended that by a good friend of mine named Elise. Much love, Elise. But you know, he talks about similar to what you're talking about with those memories in the past and living in the past. That memory is the only reality of it is in the past. It's not true to who you are right now at this second. And when we relive that, our body actually changes. We
Mhm.
get stressed and our decision making changes. So
Yep.
it's just so interesting that you say that you're doing that for people, because that is just so it's such important work. And I don't know if a lot of people even know that that kind of work is out there, because we hold it in because we don't want to, we don't want to show weakness. We want to show that we're a badass and we're so cool and tough. And yet at the end of the day, what toughness and badassness is actually having those conversations and learning to get to that next level. So again, I just really appreciate what you're doing with that side of work.
Yep.
Um, when you coach people,
Mhm.
obviously we talked about that one area. What is another one of the biggest areas that you see that when you talk about soul and becoming and identifying your soul and being comfortable with who you are? What's another big area that people really struggle with?
Um, the people that are drawn to me, because I think each guide in life will draw certain things to them. Like, I am a firm believer that you work out the thing you're supposed to come here to teach. Like, you actually have some of those experiences so that you can fully embody the experience to be able to translate the another way, okay, to teach another way through or around it. So because of that, a lot of people that come to me would be pretty high powered females. Sometimes I mean, I do work with a lot of men. I'm in executive coaching. Most of them are men, but I'm getting a lot more women coming and really asking about. In the book, there's this tenet called compassionately powerful, and so there's this concept out there that as a female leader, I can either be kick-ass results or I can be a doormat and mushy feely, but
Yeah,
I can't be both those things, or I don't know how to be both those things, or iteration of both of those things. And then when I do this really kick-ass gets results, there's a B word that people call me. And when I do this other one, there's another word they call me.
yeah,
And
right.
I feel like in either case, I'm leaving a large part of my skill set at the door,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So transcending that and bringing that and understanding that that duality really isn't the truth. We bought into it as the truth, so it is our truth. But you can equally say, I'm going to buy into this compassionately powerful concept where I'm going to hold healthy boundaries and high accountability with kindness, respect, and a lot of love. And learning the language, learning how to manage your own energy when you're under high stress so that you can literally create that space for that person to come in and allow them to be imperfect if that's what's required, or be vulnerable, or to say, hey, I think you're wrong, boss, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah,
But that's an energetic exchange. And that takes a lot of skill to understand and then to practice and be willing, because when you practice, you're going to screw it up a lot in the beginning. I
sure.
used to bring an etch a sketch. You remember etch a sketches?
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah. So I used to carry one around with me when I got promoted, and people would ask me, "Well, what's that?" And I'm like, "Well, we're going to get in a conversation. I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to ask you if we can etch a sketch it,
Yeah,
and then
right.
I'm going to ask for a do over because that's how I'm learning." And so people just knew that I was willing to get messy and screw it up, and we could just clean it up if we were both willing to do that. So that's a core way of just learning to be with people in a heart-centered, grace-centered way that unfortunately is missing.
It is missing it, but I think it's nowadays it's when you find that person or find that that energy level, man, it's on a different level. You
Yeah.
get it. You can be more vulnerable. You can have bigger conversations, and you can grow a lot quicker. I mean, 10x that relationship, because I don't, if I say something to somebody, and I've been very blessed. I have a lot of friends that I can have big conversations with that, but I can be vulnerable with them. Hey, this is what I really suck at. This is what this is what I'm not good at. And they're not going to judge me at the same time. They're going to say, you know what? Maybe I struggle with the same thing, or maybe, yes, you do suck at it. And this is how we're going to get better together. And that's what I love about these being vulnerable and being comfortable with who you are, checking that ego at the door. It's just, again, it's just the work that you're doing. It's just so important. Once again, we're talking to Alexsys Thompson, the author of The Power of a Graceful Leader. Are you a big fan of John Maxwell?
Yeah. I mean, I've read his stuff. It's got some
All right,
good
well, we're
stuff.
going to fire away his questions. I love John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. One of my favorite books of all time. Let's get right into the questions. Question number one for Alexsys. Alexsys, what is the greatest lesson you have ever learned?
To be still.
Talk about it.
So not everything, contrary to the way the world is designed and we've accepted, not everything is a doing. And as the Aquarian ages come in, more and more and more of it is a being. And that requires the ability to be uncomfortable and be still.
Do you meditate?
Uh-huh.
How often do you meditate and how long do you meditate?
Probably about 3 times a week in the like a in a Kundalini or a TM kind of a way
Okay.
for maybe 30 minutes.
Okay.
I do a lot of meditation through writing and a lot through being in nature.
That's interesting. I like how you put that too, because there's no perfect way to meditate. For everybody out there listening to this podcast, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in the world, that people think that you have to sit in that one chair and you're in, kumbaya, and that's your meditation. And that's one way of meditation. That's not right or wrong, but you can meditate in many different ways.
Mhm.
It's a matter of being alone within your thoughts and just allowing things to come to you, which I love meditating. I need to do it more often. But I'll catch myself meditating in the car before
Okay.
work, on the way to work, just driving to work, shutting the radio off, dead silent, and I'm just working through my day, working through my mental, my attitude of gratitude, and just letting things come to me and things leave from my mind. It's so important to be, and like you said, just to be quiet, be peaceful, be silent, be present. Question number 2 is, what are you learning now?
I'm learning how to co-create with nature and bring things into manifestation and form.
All right, let's talk about that.
Mhm.
Manifest. You said run that by me again.
Yeah. So there's a body of work out there by Michelle Wright Smith called at a place in Virginia called Paralandra. And she teaches you some really cool methods to work with the Davic energy in nature and co-create, like the place we're at here in Vermont. It's called Ubuntu, and I'm specifically channeling and co-creating with Gaia about where things are supposed to be,
Mm,
what types of energies are coming in, about the ley lines under the energy's crust, the garden, the animals, all of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and it's so important. One of the things that I love doing, especially when you talk about nature, is and this time of year, northern Indiana, and same thing with Vermont. We can get away with it probably now, but it's warm outside. I love walking around barefoot outside.
Yeah.
That is one of the most therapeutic things you could possibly do, and not walk around barefoot and looking at your phone. Walk around barefoot and just walk around and be silent and just listen to things. It's one of the most therapeutic things you could possibly do, because not only are you being present and meditating essentially, but you're also, there's a scientific fact there too, where you're transitioning negative ions through your body into the ground, and that just it just makes you feel that much better. When we're wearing shoes in the society that we are, I mean, we don't get to do that very often. You look back at our ancestors millions of years ago, that's all they did was barefoot. And we've gotten so far away from that, and we're getting farther and farther away from being one with Mother Nature and the land and earth, that it's again, this is why the work you're doing is so important, because we're going back to that, and we're understanding that there is so much power in nature and in land and gardening and energy forces, and there's just so much more out there than just the normal day-to-day hustle and grind, which I can't stand, hustle and grind. Question number 3 is, how has failure shaped your life?
Oh gosh, bitter. It's been bitter and it's been sweet. So one of the things that failure has done for me is helped me build an extreme amount of resilience. And so through that resilience, I have been able to get up and recreate and get up and recreate. Obviously, at least one more time than I fell down.
Yeah.
So when I fail, like for the past decade or so, I'm willing to take more risk because I'm not afraid of the failure. I'm willing to say yes to things because I'm not worried about the failure. I know I'll be able to pivot, get up, figure it out, enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what you said there, I think you went over it really quickly, but I think it's extremely powerful. So I want to talk about that again. You said that, when you fail, you get up and recreate.
Mhm.
I think that is extremely powerful. You're not trying the same thing over again. You're going to
Yeah.
recreate and do it a little bit different. You're going to maybe you go through the same motion, but you're going to recreate something different. That didn't work. I'm not going to keep banging my head against the wall, but I'm going to recreate that maybe the same situation, but just do things a little bit different. And
Yeah.
that goes back to how important creativity is nowadays. But that just goes to show where your mindset is when you talk about recreating, and how powerful being creative really is. And
Yeah.
obviously it's a big impact in your life. Question number 4 is who do you know that I should know?
I need a minute.
Take your time. I've heard a lot of great answers before. I've heard, I'll tell you this too, while you're thinking about it, I would just want this one thing to happen is that whoever you mention, depends on who you mention, uh, make sure we get in touch with these people, because one of the ways that we build a stronger community is by reaching out and meeting people that are similar. And with the power of social media and power of all this other stuff, we can meet people now that we've never met before in our entire lives, or never expected to meet. You go back 30 years ago, I would have never met you. I would have never met anybody that you may think that I should know. But at the same time, I think it's important answers that I've heard from people that say, you should meet God, or you should meet my grandmother that passed away. And I respect all those answers as well, but obviously I can't meet those people. However, long story short, whoever you think of, and if that is an actual person I could meet, I'd appreciate the actual solid opportunity to meet that
Yeah.
person.
His name is Zach Blakely, and I will introduce you.
You said Doc?
Zach.
Oh, Zach.
Yeah, Zach Blakely, and I will introduce you.
How do you know Zach?
He is, I coach him or support him in some ways. I would say in other ways, he does the same for me inadvertently. He's an extremely powerful young man that's demonstrating an immense amount of vulnerability. And in that vulnerability, he's helping a lot of men that need help, specifically right now in this space where if you're a white man, it can feel pretty isolating.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I would love the opportunity. I would love to have a great conversation with him, and I appreciate you thinking of Zach. I'm sure it's probably going to make a big impact on him too. So
Yeah.
You were too kind. Question number 5 is what have you read that I should read?
Hold on. I think you should read, because I mentioned Michelle and you said you like nature, but I hope you really like to read.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
That's a big ass book. Michelle Wright. What is that word?
Pivot. It's her memoir. Pivot. I think you have to go to her website. I don't think it's on Amazon. But if you want to have your mind blown 25 times.
Really?
Yeah.
And you can't get it on Amazon?
I'll send you the link to her website as well.
All right. Yeah, do that, because just the point that you can't get on Amazon makes me want to read it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's one of those things that maybe Amazon won't put out there for whatever reason, or maybe she doesn't want it out there. And just that whole conversation sounds fascinating to me, and I would love to check it out.
Okay.
2 more questions. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
Have you been on a silent retreat?
No.
No.
I have not. And I have thought about that multiple times. Being an extreme extrovert, it would be an extremely difficult challenge. However, I think it would be a time for me to hit the reset, because I think being an extrovert, it's got pluses and minuses, but I think one of the minuses of being an extrovert is it doesn't give you enough time to be alone within your thoughts, because I'm always doing something different. I'm always moving. I'm always going. I'm let's rock and roll. What's next? And I think to force the slow down and not to talk, to have the conversations with myself would be very, very interesting. And you know what, why we're saying this, not that I don't want to steal the thunder of this podcast real quick, but I just want to tell you, this is so cool that you mentioned that, because I can honestly say right now, I am more proud of myself than I've ever been in my entire life. And the only reason I say that is because, well, not the only reason, there's multiple reasons, but I'm happier than I've ever been. My life is as peaceful as I possibly can get. And I look back in the past and all the things that I've struggled with. And this is for everybody listening to the podcast around the world, around the galaxy, and around the universe. I think it's important just to actually say that out loud to yourself, that I'm extremely proud of myself, and I'm very, very happy with myself, because we don't do that enough. We don't give ourselves enough credit. So while you said that, I know it has nothing to do with the question, but it just popped in my head, and I think it's important for people to hear.
Remember how I said to you that the people that are coming into my wavelength come for a reason. So if you drop me your mailing address, I'll send you a journal. Because
Okay.
part of having a robust gratitude practice is being able to celebrate. And
Yeah.
if we could celebrate ourselves and do it in an area where the world didn't see us as arrogant and boisterous and all the things,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know how much better we'd all be?
Oh man,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's a world I want to live in. So you just keep singing your praises, and I'm going to keep honoring the greatness that I see in you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
so important. Final question. Question number 7 is how can I add value to you?
Hmm.
You know, hey, if you can always let me know later because it's a big question,
Yeah.
and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Sometimes when and this is probably me just talking to myself, you know, that negative self talk is, I just say that like I truly when I say that question, I truly mean like
Yeah.
how can I add value to you? I don't just say it just to say it, and I think maybe sometimes it comes across that way, but it's not. I mean, I truly mean how
Okay.
can
So
I
I
add
have
value to
it.
you?
Okay.
Okay.
So as you're moving through the rest of your life, like
Okay.
forever, this lifetime,
Okay.
and someone comes in and I come to mind, that you speak my name to them and don't ask why.
Okay. I will
That's it.
definitely do that. 100% I'll do that. And I love that
Yeah.
answer too. Um, because it's funny, it's really funny you said because I'm a big believer of that. Like when people pop in my mind,
Mhm.
I'll just call them out of the blue. Like I don't even know why you popped in my mind. You don't need to call me back. You don't need to text me. You don't need to say anything. All I'm telling you now is that you popped in my head. I'm thinking about you. And
There's
I
so
think
many
that's so
times
powerful.
when I know when I've been with people and say I'm with you, and then someone pops in my mind, then I just know now that there's a reason that you need to know that person or be connected or read their book or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Isn't
I
that
just
cool?
say it out loud now, and people do with it what they will.
Isn't that cool? I think it you know just about gives me the chills too. I just think it's just so important, and that just shows you how connected we all are.
Yes.
And the more connected we become, and more open we are, the stronger we're going to become together.
Yeah.
Alexsys, tell everybody where they can find you. Tell people where they can find the book, all the social media sites, websites. Give us everything.
Okay. So the book is on Amazon. You can find me at Alexsys, it's spelled funny, Alexsys Thompson.com. And that's the same thing on all the handles, at Twitter, at Instagram, at Facebook, all those things. So it's pretty easy.
Perfect. Make sure we connect on all those, obviously, as well. And for everybody out there listening, you know, again, reach out if you got questions for me, and I will connect you with Alexsys as well. No worries there. Jeremy at jeremytodd.com. Go to the website, all that good stuff. Hey, real quick before we get out of here, man, I'm gonna have some t-shirts coming out with motivational quotes. I know it sounds cheesy. They're negative self-talk to Jeremy again, but it's gonna be so damn cool. I'm excited about it. Run over to the website, check that out. Check me out on YouTube, trying to join that or build that channel as well. Check out Alexsys all over the world. There'll be links under in the show notes to try and find all of our stuff as well. But you know, hey, I really enjoyed this episode, Alexsys. So I appreciate you jumping on. It was a lot of fun. I say this at the end of every single episode. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.